Well, last night was quite a show at the Kansas City Public Library. You had multiple folks who were out there and debating the yes and the no side of the April 2nd tax for the Royals and the Chiefs, which, of course, is coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Early voting started yesterday. One of the skeptics of this tax was Patrick Tuohey, our friend with the Show Me Institute. How'd you do last night?
I was brilliant. It's tough to know. Anytime you're up on stage, you're so in your own head. You're trying to think of what's an appropriate. Am I talking too long? Or at least me.
Yeah.
I'm worried about all that stuff. So I will be just as interested as your audience to watch it Friday night when they air it.
Yes, it'll air Friday night on Kansas City PBS. I did reach out to Nick Haynes last night, who was moderating it. I said, "How'd you do?" He said, "Well, I've got all 10 fingers and toes." So, and I see you do as well.
Yes.
At least fingers.
So it was a lively crowd.
Yes.
I am a conservative, lowercase c as well. I'm all about being polite, and the crowd was respectful, maybe a little louder, a little raucous than I would like, but nobody stormed out, nobody created a scene, nobody shouted down anybody.
What was the listen, we know you're a skeptic of this whole thing. What was the main point that you were trying to get across last night when you spoke on that stage?
That Kansas Cityans, Jackson Countyans, are being asked to vote on this based on fear and misinformation. I know I hate that word too, but the argument that this is not a new tax is a lie. And all the time, every time you ask them or other people ask them, "Hey, are you threatening to leave?" They'll say, "No, we're not threatening to leave. We want to stay here. But if the measure fails," that's when they threaten to leave.
Yeah.
I think that is a bluff. I think that is an absolute bluff. I think both teams want to stay here, but they want to leverage our love of the teams to give them billions of dollars.
Now, the new tax thing, I asked Sly James about this, and the analogy I've used is, listen, if you and I go into an agreement where I give you $100 a month for 24 months, and then you say I need it for 36,
right.
Well, you're asking me for more money.
Right.
Even though you're asking me for the same amount per month, you're still asking me for more money. Sly said that's semantics. And John Anthony has brought up, too, he said, well, I always assumed they were going to want that money beyond 2031.
And look, it's great to be a cynic in Kansas City. It's a protective measure. You never think a tax is going away. So that is how he has adapted to living in Kansas City, and I totally get it. But had the campaign in 2006 said, there's a chance we're going to renew this in perpetuity, they would have performed less well. There is no language in the 2006 ordinance that allows for an extension. Mm-hmm. The ordinance we're talking about now calls it a new tax. But importantly, in 2006, we passed a tax to cover general obligation bonds.
Mm-hmm.
This time, it's a parks tax. And my understanding is that counties are limited in how much, there's a ceiling there somewhere. And so by making it a parks tax, we restrict the ability of the Parks Department in the future to increase a tax to deliver their services. So we're kind of crowding out other people. So it's not just a matter of the amount or the length of the tax or the use of the tax, but it's actually the tax itself that is different in a way that probably is bothering the Parks Department in Jackson County because it's encroaching on their ability to raise funds for the services they provide.
What about the fact, these stadiums, listen, they're county owned, which we've heard as well. They're not owned by the teams.
Yeah.
They're owned by the county, which is the taxpayer.
Right.
So basically they're saying, hey, you're upkeeping essentially your own products, your own buildings.
Yeah, they're owned by the county because these teams don't want to own them. They don't want to own them because it is an albatross. If they pick up and leave, now they've got to deal with property, and they just want to move the team. They don't want to be held back. They should absolutely own it. Of course they should own it. Counties got involved in owning stadia because the teams didn't want to pay property tax. But think about it this way. The county doesn't get revenue from Taylor Swift playing at Truman Sports Complex. We don't get any of the proceeds from naming rights. We don't get any of the money from external advertising. If the Royals build a stadium downtown, they're going to be external advertising. They're going to have concerts down there. Maybe they'll name it, who knows what, Geico Stadium or whatever. The county sees none of that. We see no revenue. One of the things that was particularly bothering last night is it seems that the two yes people don't understand economic benefits. They would say, these stadiums generate taxes. They generate revenue. That's true, but the revenue they generate is never greater than the hit the taxpayers take to build the thing. So there's no return on investment. You can say, for example, that, a locality's made this much, but it's never as much as the investment in the first place. You've got to look at both sides of the equations.
Okay. Patrick Tuohey with the Show Me Institutes on KCMO. So with that being said, last night, you're obviously skeptical of this whole thing. You've got KC Tenants people running up to you, a libertarian think tank guy, saying, great job.
Yeah, that was really gratifying. They were sitting right up front, and there are plenty of people. Again, I tend to collect friends on the left, and I like talking to hostile crowds. You've probably done both. It's very easy to talk to people that already agree with you. It's not a challenge.
Yeah.
What was great about last night, and you talked about it with Sly James, is that there are people on the left and the right who disagree on 99 things, but on this thing, they see it as either benefiting a billionaire or just government intervening in the marketplace where it's not wanted. And I think one of the biggest points I tried to make last night, which got a good response, is that this vote is premature. It should never have been on the ballot in April 2. We simply don't know what we're being asked for. The yes side tried to say, well, here are the community benefits and here's the impact and all this stuff, but none of that's in writing. And I said to them on stage, I want to believe you. I'm sure you're very nice people, but none of this is legally binding. And Jackson Countyans need to stand up for themselves, have some integrity, have some spine, and say, no, we're not going to give you a blank check.
What do they say to that?
Well, they didn't have much of a response. A mayor said last night that the CBA would be released today. So that is the umpteenth deadline they've set for themselves for releasing a CBA. We will see what will be released. But the problem is when you start off a campaign and your ads are lies and you have proponents saying things like, concrete cancer or bad batch of concrete, you don't have the credibility to go back to people and say, we're working on it, trust us.
Yeah, that community benefits agreement is supposed to come out today, and I guess it's going to be $140 million. But to your point, this tax would be about, what, $2 billion?
$2 billion, yeah. No, look, the best CBA for Jackson Countyans, the best community benefits agreement is for the Chiefs and the Royals to pay all their taxes. Nothing will be as good as that. So, yes, they're asking us to give them $2 billion, and they're going to give us $140 million back.
That's, gosh, I want to share this with you because I'm hearing from people all over town personally and then also on the text line. By the way, someone wants to know if there was a civility bell at last night's meeting.
There was not. I got one in my bag.
I got one of those too.
Yeah, exactly.
In your little goodie bag there from the organization.
That's right. But there was no, that wasn't in use during the event.
It would have been, I'm sure, a little crazy if it was. I have people, friends of mine who text me who are Jackson County voters, and they basically say, hey, this is about fear. We don't want to lose these teams in this town. This 3/8 cent sales tax for two major league teams. They'll say, hey, it's not a bad deal compared to other cities, and I just want to keep them here in my town, in my city.
That is a fair, that is an honest reaction. I absolutely respect that. But this is a bluff. And if this vote...
But is it? Because this town has seen teams go away before.
No, it absolutely is. These guys are invested in the community. They talk all about how they're part of the community. They have no interest in leaving. However, if this ballot measure is defeated, and if you live in Kansas City for 15 minutes, you'll totally get what I'm saying. If this is defeated, they'll be right back at the table. There may be a period of time where they have to negotiate. There may be a period of time before it can legally come back on the ballot, maybe a year, I think. But absolutely, John Sherman will sit down with Frank White, and they will do all the work that they should have done before April 2, which is a lease agreement, all sorts of CBA agreements, just put everything in writing like we had in 2006. But I also understand if you think you can get voters to vote billions of dollars for you and you don't have to commit to anything. Remember, this was on the ballot before they even announced a location. If you can do that, go for it. If you think the people of Jackson County are suckers and are going to vote for you because the Chiefs won a second Super Bowl, go for it. But if this is defeated, they'll be right back at the table. They're not going to pack up. First of all, they're here for 7 more years regardless, and there's plenty of time for them to negotiate, again, in good faith and give voters the information and the package we should have been given this time.
And we still don't know what the city's role in all this is.
No, look, the city is going to fork over hundreds of millions of dollars, probably through Port KC. They won't say anything yet. Everybody's waiting on a yes vote. This is Nancy Pelosi telling us we have to pass it before we can read it. It is embarrassing, frankly, that we're in a position where the county voters are being asked to hand over $2 billion, and we literally don't know what we're getting.
Patrick Tuohey, it's always interesting. Hey, I'm glad you got all 10 fingers and all 10 toes
Thank
after
you so
last
much.
night's performance at the Kansas City Public Library, and that will air 7:30 on Friday night on Kansas City PBS, right?
That's right.